Hey guys, so in today's lesson, we are looking at 5 common job interview mistakes and how you can avoid making them. Of course, job interviews are pretty stressful in any case, but especially if it is your first time having a job interview in English and English is not your first language, there might be some added stress and some added pressure. So today we are going to go over how you can avoid making these 5 common mistakes. And if you want to learn more about any of the topics in today's lesson, make sure you check out my Essential English for Business course. The link is down below. So let's get started. So the first common mistake is not knowing your CV, okay? Not knowing the contents or the information on your CV. And by knowing your CV, I do not mean memorizing it word for word, memorizing what you have written. I mean that you should be able to summarize your experience and confidently explain any of the information that you have written on your CV, all right? So you should be able to give more details about any of the past positions you've written. You should be able to justify the skills. You should be able to talk more about your experience, your education, your qualifications, and you should be prepared to explain any of the gaps in your employment history. So gaps in your employment history are periods of time when you were out of work. So periods where you were unemployed. The interviewer might ask you why you were out of work for 1 year or for 2 years and what you were doing during this time, all right? So knowing your CV, again, doesn't mean memorizing it word for word. It means that you can confidently summarize and give more details about the information that you have written. Now, your CV is a personal document. It is about you. It has been created by you. So there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to explain it in further detail, okay? And I really want to emphasize that you should not memorize the information on your CV because written communication and verbal or spoken communication are not the same. So the way that you have written your CV is of course going to be much more formal than the way that you would explain the same information, okay? So to help you avoid this mistake, when you are actually writing your CV, make sure that you can summarize it. Practice summarizing it verbally, okay? Practice summarizing it in 1 minute if you can, less than 1 minute if you can. Be able to talk about the highlights of your experience, anything that you want your interviewer to know. Make sure that you know how to explain it verbally and naturally, not in the exact same way that you have written it, all right? So make sure that after you've written your CV, you know the information that is on it and you can summarize or paraphrase that information, all right? I also want to tell you that you shouldn't use overly complicated grammar, language, and vocabulary on your CV that you don't understand. This is another mistake that I've seen a lot of English language learners make. Sometimes they translate or they use very complicated vocabulary or synonyms that they don't understand, but they think that it looks good and it sounds professional. And when it comes down to their interview where they actually have to talk about it, they forget what it means, okay? So avoid including language on your CV that you don't understand or that you feel like you're not going to remember. Because again, your CV is a personal document about yourself. So you have to be able to talk about it and explain it in a simpler way. So the first mistake to avoid is make sure that you know your CV, the content of your CV inside out, and that you can confidently give more details and summarize it. So the second common mistake is not doing your research or not doing enough research. Before you attend your interview, you need to make sure that you research the company and you research the position that you are applying for. And by research, I don't mean a quick Google search and scanning the information or just quickly scrolling through the information. I mean, you need to thoroughly read in detail about the company and about the position. So you can use the job posting to learn about the position, all right? So aside from getting information about the company and information about the position, when you are researching, it's a chance for you to make sure that you understand all of the language, all of the vocabulary, all of the phrases, any technical language that is involved in this specific job. All right, so you want to eliminate any challenges with English as much as you can before the interview, and doing your research and translating ahead of time, making sure you fully understand what this position involves and what the company does ahead of time will really benefit you. Okay, so research will help you to learn about the company, to learn about the position, to make sure that you understand all of the vocabulary and all of the language related to the company, related to the position. And it will show the interviewer that you actually care about this job and that you want to work for this company. Okay, so it will show that you are eager and genuinely interested in the company and the position if you have taken the time to do your research about it. All right, so make sure you do your research about the company and about the job. So the third common mistake is not preparing your answers, not preparing your answers for interview questions ahead of time. Now you might be thinking, Julie, how can I prepare my answers when I don't have the questions? I don't know what they're going to ask me. And that is a good question. It's a fair question, but I promise you there are many things that you can do to prepare your answers ahead of time. So first of all, you need to do a little bit of research and simply look up common interview questions for this specific position. All right, so for example, common interview questions for an accountant, common interview questions for a web designer, common interview questions for a consultant, or whatever position you are applying for. First, look up common interview questions for this job. Okay, so once you have your list of questions, you need to prepare. You need to prepare by simply making sure that you understand the question and making notes about what you want to say, and then practicing based on those notes. Okay, so you do not want to prepare by writing a full long answer and trying to memorize it, and there's a few reasons for this. First of all, interviewers are trained to recognize memorized answers. It's very easy for an interviewer to recognize an answer that has been memorized. I myself worked as a recruiter before I became a teacher, and it's super easy for recruiters, hiring managers, interviewers to see when an answer has been memorized. All right, so that is not the best way to prepare. Instead, when you are preparing, you can make notes about what you want to say. You can make notes about the important points that you don't want to forget. You can also make notes about the vocabulary that you want to use. So if you want to use any specific technical language or any specific phrases or acronyms, you can make notes about those things. So important points, important words, important phrases, and then you need to practice naturally responding, okay? So do not write down your full answer and try to memorize it. When you are preparing your answer, it's also a chance for you to double check your grammar, okay? So make sure you are using past tenses to answer questions about the past. Make sure you are using future forms when you are talking about the future. So this is a chance for you to look at your vocabulary, to look at your content, to look at your grammar. But again, make sure that you use notes, okay? So look up the common questions, create your notes, and take it from there. Do not write down long answers and try to memorize them, all right? So make sure that you prepare your answers to possible questions ahead of time. And as well, you need to be over prepared. So prepare as much as you possibly can. So we have talked about how important it is to prepare your answers, which brings us to the fourth common mistake, and that is not practicing your answers, all right? So preparing your answers, writing notes, writing vocabulary, checking your grammar, thinking about your answers is one thing, and practicing your answers out loud is another thing, okay? So I want to stress that just writing notes or just writing down your answers is not enough. You must practice them out loud. So there's a couple of different ways that you can practice. One fantastic way to practice your answers to interview questions is to record yourself or film yourself speaking. You can use your phone, you can use your laptop, it doesn't matter, it's just for you. And you can record yourself answering the questions, all right? So try answering the questions without using your notes. Try to answer as naturally as possible. And this will give you a chance to rewatch your answers, to look at your body language, to look at your grammar, to look at your vocabulary, to see if your answers are clear, to see if they are organized, to see if they make sense, all right? So filming yourself is a fantastic tool for practicing the answers to your interview questions. As well, you can ask someone else to help you. You can ask a friend, a family member, a teacher to help you practice your interview questions. And if you do this, I would recommend giving them a list of questions and asking them to ask you the questions in any order, okay? Not in order from 1 to 10 or 1 to 20, but let them ask you the questions randomly. And the reason for this is that sometimes we memorize or try to memorize, even if we don't want to, we sometimes do that, okay? So if you have prepared your answers in a specific order and you ask your friend to interview you with the questions in the same order, you might just rely on your memory. Instead, if you mix up the order of the questions, it will really force you to think about the question, to understand the question, and to practice in a much more natural way. As well, if someone else is helping you, let them ask you follow-up questions and challenge your answers, okay? And this is to give you the feeling of a real interview. In a real interview, the interviewer will ask you follow-up questions. They might ask for more details. They might ask for a further explanation, or they might challenge some of your answers, all right? So allow your friend or your family member to do the same thing. So let them mix up the order of the questions, let them ask follow-up questions, and let them challenge some of your answers, okay? And this will really, really help you. So preparing again is one thing, and practicing is a whole other thing. You cannot practice in your head. You must practice your answers out loud. And the fifth mistake is not asking the interviewer any questions or asking the interviewer bad questions or the wrong questions. So in most job interviews, the interviewer will ask you at the end, do you have any questions for me? And you should always say yes, okay? You should always have between 3 and 5 good, strong questions ready to ask the interviewer. So first of all, why is it necessary? Why is it important for you to ask the interviewer questions? It shows that you are interested in the position. It shows you are interested in the job. And as well, it's impossible that you don't have questions about the company because you don't know everything there is to know about the company or the job. So it's impossible that you don't have questions, and not asking anything gives the impression that you don't really care that much. Even though that might not be true. Maybe you care a lot. Maybe you really want that job, okay? However, it's not going to look like that to the interviewer if you have nothing to ask, all right? So it's really, really important that you have questions ready to ask. Now, we said you shouldn't ask bad questions or the wrong questions. What does that mean? Bad questions are, first of all, questions that you can answer yourself, questions that you can find the information to easily online, or questions that make you look unprofessional, or questions that make you look bad, okay? These are the wrong questions to be asking. So let me give you a few examples. If you ask, how many locations do you have? Or what services do you offer? What products do you sell? This shows that you know nothing about the company and you can easily find this information yourself. This should be public knowledge. This information should be on the company's profile, on their website. You should know this basic information. So these are bad questions because you can find the information yourself, okay? So any public information should not be what you're asking about. Questions that make you look bad. What do I mean by this? So if you ask something like, how soon after I start can I take a holiday? Okay, how soon after I start can I go on holidays? This shows that you are more interested in taking holidays than you are in the job itself, okay? If you ask about things like changing the working hours or working from home, this shows that you want to know what the company can do for you rather than what you can do for the company. So good questions would be questions about the role or about the company itself, all right? So for example, you could ask something like, could you tell me more about the team that I would be working with, okay? I want you to pay close attention to the grammar in this question. Could you tell me is a polite indirect question, all right? And we're using the modal verb would here to make this a hypothetical question. So could you tell me about the team I would be working with? Basically, if I got this job, okay? We're not using will because that sounds like you're definitely getting the job, but you don't know if you are. As well, you shouldn't ask anything personal or anything that makes you look unprofessional or makes you look like you don't really care about this job, okay? So asking the interviewer questions is super, super important. So there you have it. That is how you avoid these 5 common mistakes in your job interviews in English. Now, if you really want to master your interview skills and learn exactly how to understand and answer interview questions in English, as well as how to make great small talk in your interview, and what you should and shouldn't ask your interviewer, check out my Essential English for Business course via the link down below. As always, thank you so very much for watching and for learning with me, and I'll see you soon in the next one.